Hey guys, welcome back. We're here for your first match of Top Cut. I am, of course, Regina, and there's Arnie, and we've got some friends with us. This is actually really fluffy. I'm full of hot tea, and I'm actually really sleepy now. But obviously, top 8. I don't know if you guys have seen the standings so far, but we've got for you 2 people from top 8 miraculously who've not been on stream. We've got Ben Lee versus Andrew Weaver. But if you've been watching, Pokemon Labs at all this entire season or in the past couple of years, you'll know that these two are very regular on stream.
Yeah, and Andrew even won one of the premier challenges. I think it was the last second one back. So he's definitely no stranger to Pokemon, and neither is Ben. They both are running very fun teams. We're excited to see what happens here.
I mean, it's just fun. I was a bothering friend because he's really fun to tease. And Ben, is a first-year master, just aged up. He's been playing as a senior against a bunch of SoCal locals. So the fact that he's consistently cutting at this level is very, really fun to see. Yeah. And I was like, how come you don't have the same standings at regionals? And he looks at me in the eye and he's like, well, the last time I brought a Jackson team, so that was my first wow. So Jackson was actually the person we lost to at the last PC. And Jackson's, I think, only just a year older. But, I'm expecting good things from Ben for the rest of his time as a Pokemon player, as a PC player. And I'm expecting Andrew, I haven't even looked at team sheets yet, but I'm expecting Andrew to run some sort of Victory Bell team. If he's not, then do I even know Andrew? So.
I know. Victory Bell has just seen so much use with Andrew.
Yeah.
And
yeah, so actually, I'm sorry about the screen, guys. We'll be actually going right back into this match. So, oh, look at that. We've got Groudon Incineroar and Zygarde Incineroar on the field. And I'm pretty sure that was actually Andrew's Incineroar's Intimate that we just saw go last.
I think so. In this case, it's a sort of a mirror match of the two ground-type restricted legends. We're going to see Andrew get out that that Groudon, going into Tapu Koko against Zygarde, though, which is kind of interesting. If you can, Tapu Koko's got the Dazzling Gleam, which can counter it, but also Zygarde is not going to go down to that, and has 1,000 arrows, 1,000 waves.
Yeah, and actually Ben is switching in that Tapu Fini and placing his own Incineroar, so no fake out from either side of the field here. That Midseason activation on Ben's side is going to be really important, giving it that special defense raise. Protecting itself on this turn though, so probably going to try to keep itself from getting hit. Probably is expecting attack from that, from that Incineroar, but now we've got that right now.
Ben going into that Tapu Fini, getting that Zygarde into its well-known position for setting up now. Fini usually can go for Swagger onto it, or Zygarde could go for its own coil. In the Misty terrain, Zygarde really benefits most, I think.
And Ben, I think, has been having fun having this team. And we've seen a lot of people try to use the Misty Seed and the whole self-swagger thing. I think Tapu Fini, especially as a Pokemon this season, has been, again, relegated to a support role. But it's been a really fun one to watch, especially when you've got things like that side swagger happening. But Tapu Koko also in a really nice position to kind of pivot as it needs to. Like right now, when it goes for that full push into that Tapu Fini.
There was really nothing stopping Andrew from getting that Volt Switch out. And now that he sees Ben setting up that Zygarde, he's really able to go into anything else that is not weak to ground, like this Groudon he's setting out now. And Ben, on his side, we're going to see, he's just going to go straight for that 1,000 arrows. Doesn't do too much onto either side. And we're gonna see Icy Wind as well. So Icy Wind, I'm a bit surprised we didn't see the Swagger right away, because we do have that Intimidate that Andrew has used onto Ben's Incineroar. So though now he does outspeed, we're gonna see Incineroar get back out, possibly setting up for another Intimidate on Ben's Zygarde.
Yeah, that's probably why we didn't see that 1,000 arrows do so much, is because that Intimidate earlier from that Incineroar is, really good against those physical attacks. And we've got that Tapu Koko back on the field, so he's gonna make sure he stops Ben from being able to do exactly what we've been expecting, sort of that self-swagger thing. And that damage from that Tapu Fini was very considerable, so I think we're gonna see a lot more damage from this Tapu Koko going into that Tapu Fini once more. Probably get it down into fairy range, unless Ben somehow protects that Tapu Fini from being attacked. Zygarde's still in kind of rough spot though.
Yeah, Zygarde with that Intimidate, Tapu Koko might be able to take 1,000 arrows because it is a spread move. It has less damage than it normally would do. And Incineroar's Intimidate also going to cripple Andrew's Groudon, but Tapu Koko is going to get out of there and go for that.
We're going to get another Incineroar switch in right now, I think, for that Zygarde. Going to get a -2 into it, so Ben's going to kind of have to figure out how to reset the Zygarde without having to take too much damage from whatever's coming in. And then we see, that Incineroar again, and getting Intimidate this time into both of Ben's Pokemon once more, so a -1 on the Incineroar on Ben's side, but a -2 onto that Zygarde, which is going to try to negate right now.
Yeah, that coil that's really the only thing Ben can do to remove that Intimidate. Obviously, he can switch back in top of Finny eventually, but right now it just wasn't the right play. That Precipice Blades, Incineroar, thanks to that Intimidate, it's going to take it barely. We're going to see that Berry now. We know Ben's Pokemon, or Ben's Incineroar does have a berry, a Pinch Berry, and that's going to definitely help it, but Groudon, it's still not in the best position because Groudon's going to be able to Precipice Blades again and remove it from the field.
Well, you've got the fake out on Ben's side now to stop that Groudon for at least one turn, and you have sort of this double fake out potentially once more. And so Ben could either go for another foil or he could actually go for another attack. This is the part where I think it's hard to have Zygarde because you don't want to really get rid of the defenses or the boost that you're having on it unless you absolutely have to. And Ben bringing in Venusaur right now is actually pretty smart because now you get that chlorophyll potential from later on. And no sleep, obviously. Wow, but Venusaur avoiding that Precipice Blades is going to be nice because it gets no damage on the switches. That Zygarde, though, takes that very nicely after those Intimidates.
Ben right now actually in a really decent position. We're going to see that Zygarde complete, which has the coolest transformation of all time in Pokemon. Look at that. That just looks epic. But Ben's got really good type coverage against Andrew at the moment. Venusaur, most likely fastest on the field. It's going to be able to go for a Grass Knot or an Energy Ball, whatever grass move it has, onto Andrew's Groudon, while Ben, even though his Zygarde isn't at a boosted attack stat, still should do a decent amount onto Incineroar. But Ben wants that. He was going to kind of trick Andrew there, and I think he's going to keep in the Venusaur and instead resetting the Misty Terrain.
Yeah, and I think that's really smart of Ben because he's trying to, I think, bait Andrew in some way. But we have the Yveltal from Andrew's side, and that the Dark Aura boosted Sucker Punches and any sort of other deck type moves is really good to have on Andrew's side. I mean, Zygarde just feeling free to go for the coil here is it's not really in a bad position to do so. Like, nothing really on Andrew's side kind of threatens it, even with that Precipice Blades. Andrew's resetting those Intimidates onto it. We saw how badly those Intimidates hurt him with that miss on the knockout. And he's also bringing back his own Incineroar, inhibiting, getting that kind of double switch out. So he's able to at least bring back that Tapu Koko to kind of stop Tapu Fini from doing anything like getting that swagger onto that Zygarde once more.
Yeah, and removing that Misty Terrain, that definitely is what Andrew needed to do. Overall, I still feel like Ben's, with that Zygarde, now with the Coil, I believe it's a +1. And that, at +1, is going to do a lot of damage onto the Incineroar, even at neutral. It's going to do a lot on the Koko. And Groudon, I think, is at around half health, so Andrew really just needs to switch in, predict what Ben's going to switch into his own Pokemon accordingly, and focus on removing that Zygarde, because if it gets more boosts from Finny or Coil, it's really going to be a threat.
Yeah, but this is just, this is the point where we could actually say this is a revolving door of Pokemon, where you have things like that. Incineroar was mainly switched in, and now we've got the Volt Switch once more from Tapu Koko, being able to allow Andrew to pivot consistently. We are probably going to get that Incineroar once more onto the field. It's really important for Andrew to at least try to negate all of these stat boosts that Ben has been trying to have here. And we also have the Sucker Punch just in case Ben does go for the attack, but instead we're going to get a knockoff. Going into that sort of picking up, not quite the knockout on there, because there was no item on that Incineroar. As Incineroar does make a connection, and again, those Intimidates kind of showing why they're so important in this matchup.
Yeah, those Intimidates, that's really the main saving grace for Andrew's team, because when you look at it on paper, Groudon, it can't do too much, and same with Yveltal, and Incineroar and Tapu Koko are weak to ground. But because he's been able to get those Intimidates out, I think he's really forcing Zygarde into a tough spot. I think it's also smart for him to focus on Ben's left side of the field, the Venusaur, at the moment, because knowing Zygarde doesn't do a lot, and knowing it's going to have to go for a Coil or Protect or something, it can't do a lot of damage. It's pretty much a free attack on Ben's
and
side.
Andrew going for that Tailwind as that Incineroar finally gets knocked out by that 1,000 arrows. I think it's smart to use that Tailwind because a lot of Ben's Pokemon have been faster, and so Andrew's taking this time to really just go for that setup and trying to set himself up for the end game. He does lose the Incineroar on this turn, but I think he can bring back like that Tapu Koko for another switch out, or he's bringing in the Sun against a Venusaur as well, which is going to be an interesting choice. However, he also does have that Tailwind, and there is no sleep potential actually for either Pokemon now because Yveltal has been brought down by 1,000 arrows.
Yeah, so now Andrew, he does have the advantage in speed. Again, not 100% sure on Venusaur because everything but Zygarde is essentially boosted by +2. So really Andrew can go for a couple things. He can go for the knockoff onto Venusaur, especially because if it is carrying a Life Orb, that will really threaten Andrew's own Groudon. And there it is. Let's see what item it is carrying. There it is, Life Orb. So like I said, that's going to threaten Groudon. Now because of that knockoff, this Grass Knot from from Venusaur onto Groudon might not have done enough, but it did. It did.
Yeah,
It's still strong.
This is a move that, you know, is based off of the weight as well, and it's super effective damage. I mean, Ben's just free to kind of go for the coil again, and it's hard, I think, for Andrew to be losing that Incineroar so early from before, and he's kind of in this position where he can't deal the damage he needs to against Ben's Pokemon anymore. He lost that Groudon, and he's got the Tapu Koko, but Tapu Koko can't really touch anything on this field. He can Volt Switch, but Volt Switch only does so much damage. Ben still has that Tapu Fini in the back, can reset the terrain, and Andrew's kind of just forced to, you know, play this out. Like, obviously, both of them have Tapus that can make sure that Venusaur can't really use Sleep Powder, but we are going to get Incineroar back on the field for an Intimidate on the year. And
that definitely cripples that Yveltal. We've seen it with Knockoff, so knowing that, it definitely relies on some physical attack. Could be mixed, could be investing in physical. We also saw the Nature's Madness, but that missed. That's just kind of adding insult to injury because there's not much Andrew could do besides that. We saw the Knockoff do so little because of all the coils Ben has been using.
It's also consumed the Misty Seed from earlier.
Yeah, so in that case, you know, even though Andrew has, it looks like he's going to toss in the towel here, but even though Andrew had this advantage in speed, that Zygarde really looks like not, he's changed his mind there, might have some sort of strategy that thought of last minute to give him an advantage here.
So getting the fake out here from that Incineroar into the Yveltal is super tough. Hey, if Nature's Madness connects, you can at least attack the next turn. If both these Pokemon can survive another 1,000 arrows, he might actually be in a good spot here. So 1,000 arrows obviously going to connect with both Pokemon once more on either side of the field. And we do have this Yveltal. Oh, sorry. We do have this Yveltal sticking around. Has the potential for that Sucker Punch later on. The tail one does end, but now it's a matter of how much damage each Pokemon can do. But now,
yeah, Andrew's gonna toss it in. No matter what happened, really, Ben would be able to knock out that Yveltal. I think Andrew, in this case, he really didn't have his team in general is very weak to ground.
It's
yeah,
actually really passive team against Zygarde. And the thing was, I think both of them did a very interesting and kind of fun job of watching it to see it happen. They were kind of like switching out Tapus and switching out terrains and like weather, and they were never really in any position to kind of start dealing attacks until one of them picked up that knockout, and then Incineroar was actually like the first and the key knockout of that game.
Yeah, I think if Andrew was going to be able to keep his Incineroar in a bit longer, he might still have a shot, even though Zygarde really walls his team when you look at it. It's not very much he can do. I don't really know about Andrew. I think his best option may be Victory Bell, because I think we've seen it carry Energy Ball or Weather Ball in the past, so that might be a good option to go onto Zygarde. But I don't really know. But if not, I don't know. Just Weather Ball and the Electric Terrain wouldn't really do much. Andrew's in a really desperate position. He's got to rely on Incineroar's Intimidate to at least have a shot here.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is like Ben just has a little bit more offensive pressure. I think he's gotten a couple of fake outs. There's no way Andrew can really stop it. And Andrew's biggest threats are technically that Groudon and the Victory Bell that you've also we saw kind of be a little bit passive in this game as well. He managed to get the tailwind and the knockoffs, but it was a little bit too little too late. And he relied mainly on that Incineroar and that Tapu Koko as well. So we are talking about Andrew, who's on your right screen, on your left side of the screen, guys. And both of this Pokemon are really supportive of the others, and I feel like Groudon had to put in most of the work. Whereas Ben's Pokemon, each one of them had kind of like a role to play. Like the Venusaur, we didn't see it do a lot except that Grass Knot, but he used it to kind of bait and switch Pokemon as needed.
I think that there's not very much that Ben has to change in this match. We saw the Finny, we saw the Zygarde, we saw the Venusaur, and we saw the Incineroar. So those are his four. That's a good combo. You have the good Fire, Water, Grass, and then a Mon that can work in any circumstance as long as it gets that Misty Seed boost. Zygarde is going to be hard to kill, especially when you look at Andrew's team. A good chunk of the stuff that hits Zygarde is physical. So
we've got the Victory Bell and the Incineroar actually as the lead for Andrew here, and we've got Incineroar and Zygarde. So two fake outs obviously on the field, and we've got that Victory Bell that Andrew has been consistently bringing here. We do have the faster Intimidate on Andrew's side, which I think we've actually seen pretty consistently in game one as well.
Yeah, I think that allows Andrew to at least get a faster fake out if he can somehow do something with his Victory Bell to prevent Zygarde from setting up or getting too far. Now would be the time to use that fake out on Ben's own Incineroar and have your Victory Bell do something. But I don't know exactly what it can do. If it carries maybe Grass Knot, because Zygarde's neutral to that, and but that's not going to matter because Zygarde switches out anyway.
Yeah, and so Ben's actually going to bring in that Tapu Fini, bring in the Misty Terrain, which actually could be very important for later on. And like you said, if there was any Grass Knot or Energy Ball, if Tapu Fini can take that a little bit better, despite the super effectiveness because of how bulky it is and how light it is, that Grass Knot move based primarily also on the weight actually does a lot of damage, boosted by the life orb that Victory Belt is carrying. And again, Andrew did have that faster Intimidate.
I think Andrew kind of has a plan here. I would not be surprised if we see Ben switch out his own Incineroar to Zygarde. But Andrew, if he's carrying Tapu Koko, will be able to remove the Misty Terrain first. But we're going to see Ben switch out first. And that means that Zygarde's going to get that Misty Seed boost in. At that point, Zygarde's a beast.
Yeah, it makes it a difficult Pokemon to take down. But yeah, I mean, Andrew and Ben are playing this game where the terrain is the most important thing right now. We do have that Tapu Koko being switched in for that Incineroar, so a little bit too late here. But it's not. It wouldn't have mattered either way because Ben was always in a position to be able to switch in that Tapu Fini. But that Sludge Bomb's going to do a lot of damage onto that switch in. Could have a poison. Yeah, there's a poison potential because that terrain was erased. So at least you have that going if you're Ben. But you also have the power construct ability is still up in play here.
You know, Andrew, even though that Victory Bell's gone, the Poison Stall might be his saving grace. Being able to pull off and Intimidate now that the Victory Bell is gone, yeah, it's an unfortunate loss, but he can bring in his Incineroar. Being able to stall Intimidate until Zygarde goes down to Poison, that might be his best play, who knows?
I mean, that's actually a difficult thing to do.
It is.
Remember that as soon as the Zygarde hits 50%, it's going to go to complete form with that power construct, and Ben's going to be able to, like, as long as Ben doesn't play the way he did in Game 1, where all he did was sort of, where what he did was, he just, was stalling out as much as he could. As long as he doesn't do that, again, then he'll be in an okay position.
And in this case for Ben, you're actually going to get that Zygarde out, but this Incineroar, this Tapu Koko, they're both weak to ground, and Zygarde, they can't really hit Zygarde at all. Flare Blitz being the best move from Incineroar, and Tapu Koko we saw in Nature's Madness, that might come in handy. And the Misty Terrain coming out from Ben's side again, which means Tapu Koko's attacks, once again, are minimized.
I mean, it still does a lot of damage to Tapu Fini. Not quite enough, obviously, to get into the red, but at least allows Andrew a chance to pivot here. And this is going to be one of those turns where Ben chose to mainly switch everything out, and he's saving that Zygarde for later on. He is going to be bringing in that Groudon once more, so at least the Chlorophyll Pokemon that's going to be benefiting him this time is going to be Ben's own Venusaur. And we haven't really seen it too much with the Juno that carries a Life Orb, but now it's just a matter of are they going to attack it or are they going to try to pivot once more?
Yeah, I think that Volt Switch actually backfired on Andrew, obviously bringing in the Groudon to boost Venusaur's speed. We didn't know that Venusaur was going to come in this turn, so Ben definitely made that adjustment perfectly to get that speed boost. And now Venusaur can't do too much onto Incineroar, and it has to watch out for its Flare Blitz, especially in the sun. Groudon also countering pretty nicely. I'm not sure Venusaur is going to stay in. Also, keep in mind, Zygarde lost his Misty Seed boost, so that makes it a bit easier to knock out for Andrew.
And it's actually bringing back that Tapu Koko. So again, we've got this really kind of emphasis on who has control of that terrain, because the boost to Tapu Koko's electric type moves makes it really strong as a Pokemon. But we do have Ben also protecting, keeping the Venusaur in, so probably trying to debate something from that, as Icy Wind from Tapu Fini is going to change the speed a little bit of Andrew's Pokemon, going to lower him both by one stage.
Definitely a good play by Andrew, getting that electric terrain up, because you really want to eliminate the sleep powder from Venusaur. That is the last thing you want. In this case, Ben...
Yeah, the Flare Blitz actually from Andrew going into that protection spot as well.
You know, Ben here, even though he's got that speed boost with Venusaur, he really has to predict, is Tapu Koko going to stay in or is he going to switch? I think there's a good chance it'll switch, but he has that option to attack that slot and hard. If he goes for, if Tapu Koko stays in, he's got Sludge Bomb. If he switches, he could go for the Grass on Venusaur, or he can send in his own Incineroar.
Yeah, and like this is again like sort of the game I've been playing in Game 1, where it's about intimidating the fake ass, it's pivoting and trying to bait out moves. He's even got the withdrawal Tapu Fini, so if actually Andrew didn't call that properly, he's going to be Volt Switching into a spot where he can't Volt Switch into.
And he did. He actually went for the Volt Switch onto the Venusaur slot. Now we see Ben's Incineroar drop down to half health, thanks to that electric terrain boost, and we obviously now know and just has to bring in his Groudon.
And well, it's coming in a really nice position here where it's going to be non-intimidated, could attack next turn, and not have to worry about anything that's coming in, because whatever comes in that next turn is going to be taking a lot of damage. But we do, like I said, that poison actually ended up helping Ben a little bit, because he does get the power construct now.
Now Ben with that power construct, the biggest boost with that ability is, you take a look at Zygarde's HP now, it is a little bit more. I think it gains a quarter to or a third. That's a huge help for Andrew. Although the poisoning is still there, Andrew, he's really got a hard time beating that power construct Zygarde, because look at how much health it has now, and look, Andrew, he could Flare Blitz it or Precipice Blades, but again, Zygarde's a bulky Pokemon. It's not going to go down to both of those.
Yeah, I mean, well, the Incineroar faking out into Andrew's Groudon is something that we kind of expected because it was on this turn, and Ben's kind of free to kind of try to set up. That Incineroar is probably going to go after Ben's after that U-turn, get some chip damage on there and bring back something that can take care of that a little bit better, which is going to be that Tapu Koko. Like, obviously that Tapu Koko is the only one left, but the Volt Switches and being able to at least pivot once again, and then you go for. So I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a Volt Switch into that Incineroar, and then we are going to see that Incineroar coming back, at least another way to negate Ben's own Zygarde.
You know, in this case, Andrew, it's not game over for him yet. We saw that, I believe we saw he's carrying Nature's Madness on his Tapu Koko. If he's able to pull that off on Zygarde and Groudon takes a hit, it will be able to Precipice Blades. I think that'll do enough to get that last quarter health off of Zygarde and remove Ben's Incineroar. I think if that will happen, we'll see a 2 versus 2. Andrew, thanks to his Tapu Koko, might have a shot still, surprisingly.
But I mean, Ben's also shown that he has no problem whatsoever switching up Pokemon as necessary, and that's also something that Andrew has to consider, because he has to figure out what Ben's best options are. Right now, Ben's going for those manual switch outs. We're gonna get that Tapu Koko back into play here. You're gonna try to negate the damage that Tapu Koko can do to any of the Pokemon here because of that terrain use.
Yeah, in this case, it's not just about the Pokemon here, it's about the players. Ben and Andrew are two very good known players. They've made Top Cut multiple times, and we're also going to see that 1,000 arrows come out. Top Coco's gone.
Yeah, but it did manage to get the Nature's Madness into Zygarde, which is actually extremely important. And that 1,000 arrows knocking out the Tapu Koko is a little bit consequential, but Zygarde is going to go down on this turn thanks to that Precipice Blades and that Poison Residue. So Ben does take out the Tapu Koko, but loses his own Zygarde. Again, that Nature's Madness connecting, really helping with that damage. However, Andrew's down to his Incineroar and his Groudon, whereas Tapu Fini is still going to be on the field, having avoided that Precipice Blades.
Also, keeping in mind, with Ben, he's got the Venusaur up. That's going to be able to counter Groudon. I'm curious if we've seen Protect on Andrew's Groudon yet. I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure most Groudons carry Protect, obviously, but he needs to keep that Groudon alive. Make sure that Andrew needs to make sure that Flare Blitz hits Venusaur and gets it out for good, because then he's stuck with Tapu Fini and Incineroar, and in that case, Groudon will be able to do a lot of damage, enough to finish this game off. And like I said, Ben and Andrew, they're two players that made Top Cut multiple times. They're super strong. You can't just think about, oh, I'm going to use this super effective attack. You have to get into their head and think, okay, what are they going to do? Are they going to go for the obvious play? Are they going to go for the more unusual one? So having these two amazing players on the field, it adds another layer of depth to the game.
I think if you're Andrew, you have the big option here right now, and then you just kind of have to click Precipice Blades and hope that you hit. Or you could go for the Fire Punch actually with the Venusaur spot, because Venusaur is actually your biggest threat right now. So I think you fake out into Venusaur and then double down into it. But we do have an Icy Wind, so at least Ben's going to try to make sure he gives himself a little bit more of a speed boost later on.
That Icy Wind, it does a little bit on both Pokemon, but the speed drop is definitely what's crucial. I'm curious to see how much the Fire Punch or Precipice Blades, depending on what he's going to go for. We're going to see the Berry off Groudon from Andrew's side, and that is a Citrus Berry. That's an item that has seen much less use this format, but I still think it's pretty decent. The Fire Punch going to remove Ben's Venusaur, and now Andrew might have turned this match around thanks to that play.
I think it just also depends what other moves he has on that Tapu Fini. Then Incineroar is here, so at least Ben has a chance to go for the big out as well. Because then it comes to matter down of Flare Blitzes and the berries that the Incineroar may or may not have in the end. So I think Andrew's still in a pretty okay spot, but if that Tapu Fini has ways to kind of hit either from the Moonblast, so if you fake out and you Moonblast into the Groudon and you can take care of the Oh, goes for the Swagger. Very nice.
That's interesting.
But yeah, so at least you have a stronger power, so I think you could at least do more damage here. Yeah, you go for the Flare Blitz here, and you get that same attack bonus, and you get the Swagger boost is almost. Ooh, but I think you also get. Oh, you don't.
And that Precipice Blade hits both.
That was actually that was a very good play from Ben.
Wow.
Very nice.
That was entertaining. I honestly did not think this was going to go to game 3 at the beginning, but it just proves this game is never over until all the Pokemon have fainted from one side. You can't predict anything. There's nothing given to you. You have to just think everything
you can
through.
predict something.
Yeah. I mean, but still, I mean, we've seen really unusual plays in some matches. And this has just been a really fun match to watch so far because especially Ben and Andrew, they're known for being really good. They both, like I said, they both hit top cut. So to see them face off against each other, especially we see Zygarde, we don't see that very often. It's gained more use recently, but again, it's not a very widely used Pokemon. And same with Victory Bell. So seeing those two go against each other is really fun.
And when you're here, I think Andrew doesn't need to bring that Victory Bell. He let it go too easily in that second game, and I think Ben has still been really good about the Pokemon he's brought. He's been very good about pivoting them and protecting his Pokemon as necessary. The problem is, I think Ben could have played things a little bit differently, but I think he did what he needed to, and that poison is the thing that hurt him the most. Like, I honestly think that if Ben hadn't gotten poison, he would have won that match, because that residual damage is what knocked out his Zygarde. Without that poison, he definitely would have been in a better position to kind of take names that next turn. Whereas I think Andrew, when you rely on something like that, like, it's nice to capitalize on it, but he also needs to, I think, focus on preserving his Pokemon a little bit better.
Yeah. One thing I want to point out also is we saw Ben's Incineroar outspeed Andrew's Groudon, so that kind of intrigued me too, because Incineroar is known for being quite slow. It's got, like, it's really, really slow base speed. I think it's 60, while Groudon carries 90 base speed. So Ben, but then also the Icy Wind. The Icy Wind Tapu Fini, I think that's going to be a really clutch play as well for Ben if it ends up being in the same scenario as last time. And we're going to see the Incineroar from both sides, Victory Bell coming out from Andrew's side as well, and Ben bringing out his Tapu Fini.
Yeah, so I think interesting choice for both of them. I mean, we have sort of that fake out potential from both of them, but again, Ben does have the faster one, and Andrew's going to protect his Victory Bell a little bit better on this turn, brings in that Tapu Koko, so going to try to stop any sort of Swagger plays from here, and has the obvious kind of potential to go for the Pulse, which again gets boosted by that electric turret.
Andrew's team really does. Oh, we're going to see the Tapu Fini switch out into Zygarde, but Zygarde not going to get that Misty Seed boost there. But like I said, Andrew, he's really banked his team on a lot of pivots. Incineroar and Tapu Koko have moves that get them out nicely. And we're going to see Solgaleo come out from Ben's side as well.
So Ben bringing in a kind of new Pokemon here for Game 3, and you know, I don't actually blame him, because bringing in the new Pokemon for Game 3 is always kind of some way to kind of throw your opponent off of their feet, and he comes in just for that fake out, as Zygarde actually comes in for very nicely here, as both Andrew and Ben did do that manual switch out. So I think Ben is trying to go for a little bit maybe more offensive thing. We have this Solgaleo, we haven't seen it in either of the games before, but if it's anything like his other ones, it's potentially carrying a wide guard for later on.
Yeah, that's something else I've been intrigued with. We're also going to see that Tapu Fini come back out, so now the Misty Seed will activate for Zygarde. Andrew here does have two Pokemon weak to Zygarde's 1,000 Arrows, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a switch out, and there you go, the Incineroar's getting out of there, going into Victory Bell again.
And Victory Bell takes these moves a little bit better. So the Volt Switch again going into that Tapu Fini. So a little bit of a tough choice, I think, for Ben to kind of sacrifice that HP on that Tapu Fini, but we are going to probably get that Incineroar coming in, or if not, actually might be that Groudon for that later on to help give that Chlorophyll boost to that Victory Bell. Yeah,
either way, it's going to end up benefiting Andrew. We don't know how much Grass Knot does onto Zygarde. We know it's a very heavy Pokemon. We know that Victory Bell has the Life Orb, and we're going to see Incineroar anyway. But that's still good for Andrew. He's got the Intimidate pressure now and Fake Out pressure on Ben's side. And we're going to see that 1,000 Arrows. That's going to do a decent amount to Incineroar because it is weak, but still, the Intimidate really does cripple it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Andrew's also done a really good job of making sure that he tries to keep Ben's Zygarde from getting too much HP. The problem is once you're fighting something like Zygarde, you have to try to make sure that you don't tap into that power construct mode for it. And I mean, Tapu Fini is probably going to be switching around a little bit later on as well, because I think we're going to see some more Tapu Kokos being switched in. And that Solgaleo might actually be the game changer here for Ben, because there's if he can get rid of that Incineroar on Andrew's side, he'll be in a better spot to kind of take down the rest of Andrew's team.
Yeah. Ben Solgaleo also intrigues me because so far we've seen Andrew with Victory Bell and Incineroar on top of Coco. And Solgaleo is usually able to counter all of those with Sunsteel Strike, Zen Headbutt, and Superpower. We're going to see Solgaleo come back in from Ben's Zygarde slot and Groudon switch in on Andrew's side, getting that Drought up, going to help his Victory Bell if it comes back in later. Tapu Fini also going out. 3 Pokemon have switched out this turn. And Incineroar coming out from Ben's side to Intimidate on Andrew's Pokemon, which is actually Andrew switching into that Groudon. Not going to help him as much as he would hope, because the Intimidate and the Flare Blitz going on to Ben's own Incineroar does just a little bit of damage.
That would have been such a read if he decided to go for that Flare Blitz into that Solgaleo spot.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I think Ben is, I want to say, just a little bit ahead of Andrew in this case, where he's making proper calls of what Pokemon to switch in, what Pokemon to switch out, and he's made sure that he's got that Intimidate for later, and is intimidating both of the Pokemon on Andrew's side that need to be intimidated. Solgaleo isn't going to be able to take a lot of moves easily from either Groudon or from that Incineroar, but if we see that Wide Guard from Solgaleo here and Andrew decides to quick pass the displays at any point, we might be a little bit of, Ben's in a better position.
Yeah, but Andrew now going to go back into this Tapu Koko. Going to prevent sleep if we, and I don't think we were going to see Venusaur, right?
Well, we're not going to see sleep at all anyway.
Yeah,
because of both terrains, and Venusaur's not here.
Yeah, we're going to see Groudon protect. Incineroar going to go for that fake out, and there's the superpower reveal from Solgaleo. It went onto Tapu Koko, so it is resisted, but now Andrew has to keep that in mind if he decides to switch in Incineroar. And now Solgaleo's not in a good position because its defense and attack are lowered. And that's not good when you have Groudon on the field against you.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. Now, since Groudon is it's going to be unable to protect, so that has to be careful, because Ben has to decide if Andrew's going to withdraw that Groudon or if he's going to keep it in and try to go for an attack and what attack he goes for. So Ben, I think, is in a little bit a better spot where he's able to at least pivot, because that Tapu Koko might be fast and he can go for the full switches, but Ben is still in a really good spot to try to pivot for his own. He can manually switch out that Tapu Fini for that Tapu Fini before anything else, which I think what we're going to see here.
Oh, it's actually Zygarde instead. Well, that's Zygarde, again, now no longer carrying the Misty Seed boost. That will make it a little bit easier to take down. Nature's Madness going on to Solgaleo. Want to make sure that that restricted legend is gone. And Groudon outspeeding that Solgaleo. That's
No Wide Guard here.
That's interesting. But that Solgaleo is now gone, so Ben has to rely on his Zygarde for his only restricted legend. But that's what he's been doing in the past few matches anyway, so he definitely can do it. I'm surprised we didn't see a switch out from Andrew, though, even from Tapu Koko, but the Nature's Madness was a risk, but it paid off.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where I think you have to decide what you want to do, and you know, despite this, I think this Groudon now is at -2, so I think Andrew's going to have to figure out how he's going to want to keep this Groudon around. Tapu Koko's still in a really good spot to kind of at least deal some damage to Incineroar. Zygarde is kind of a sitting, well, actually could go for the 1,000 arrows and knock out that Tapu Koko. Doesn't have a lot of attack boost and everything to it, but it's still kind of a powerhouse and kind of a threat to Andrew unless Andrew decides to deal with it.
Yeah, in this case, it's kind of it is a game, like you said, it was a revolving door of Pokemon. So many switches in for Intimidates and Fake Out that either way, I think you can't really predict, oh, they're going to stay in with this, because you know something's going to switch out. I don't remember the last turn we saw without a switch out, as we see Tapu Koko from Andrew's side switch into his own Incineroar. Intimidate, crippling both of Ben's Pokemon in the process. Are we going to see a double switch from Andrew? I guess not. We're going to see that Fake Out from Ben's side onto Andrew's Incineroar, and a Coil between Zygarde, raising that attack stat even though it was just lowered this same turn. And actually, more important, raising the defense stat. This Precipice Blades, its first Groudon's at -2, and then Ben raising that defense with the Coil. That does nothing. That Precipice Blades does nothing on Ben's Zygarde. but it does do a decent amount onto Incineroar, but it's not going to be able to knock out in the next turn because Incineroar is able to eat its Pinch Berry.
Yeah, so the fun thing about this match is, like, I was talking to Miguel Artio a little bit earlier. We were talking about Incineroar and how some of the matches we'd seen didn't really have a lot, but these two are showing exactly why Incineroar is so important. You've got the ability to just pivot as you need to. Incineroar's Intimidate and that fake out pressure is so nice and so handy to have, especially when you pair it with Groudon and have the ability to attack in the sun. Like, Andrew has a very nice set of Pokemon here right now. Sure, he has that Groudon at -2, but at least he has the potential to kind of go for attacks to mitigate the damage with those Intimidates. Like right now.
And that 1,000 arrows, though, again, you're just saying how Incineroar is so important. It's important enough to take 1,000 arrows from a Zygarde, even when it was at half health. The Precipice Blade's going to connect onto only the Incineroar, so it isn't going to get that damage on Zygarde, which I think Andrew really needed. But he is going to be able to remove his own Incineroar and knock out Ben's, and now get into a better position against that Zygarde.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Precipice Blade misses are always really tough, and Ben's kind of down to his last 2 Pokemon here. That Zygarde's still at better health than it was before, but I will say, at this range, that's probably a good thing for Andrew because it wouldn't have knocked out, it would have brought in Zygarde complete, which is something that is a little bit troubling that we've seen for Andrew to try to deal with. I mean, Tapu Fini is going to come back on the field here. It's not going to really like anything from Victory Bell, which is going to have that sun, I think, still up, unless I
It just went out, yeah.
Yeah, so Victory Bell's still kind of in a tough spot. And Andrew has really companion lead Pokemon, but Ben has good Pokemon out here. That Tapu Koko, though, is going to be a very important player here.
Yeah, I'm wondering, especially with that Groudon at -2, I'm definitely anticipating a switch from Groudon into Tapu Koko, removing the possible swagger from Ben's Tapu Fini onto his Zygarde, and possibly confusing his Zygarde. It might still be worth the risk for Ben, though, because Zygarde at neutral attack isn't going to be able to do too much. But instead of Tapu Koko, we're going to see Incineroar switch in.
Yeah, I mean, the Incineroar switch in is also really smart because you can at least stop something the next turn, and then or you can go for the U-turn and send it a couple turns later, and make sure that you have like that weather. I mean, both these Pokemon taking that 1,000 arrows very comfortably, and the Sludge Bomb going to take a lot of damage to that Tapu Fini spot as well. It's actually going to be able to knock out that easily.
So now it's all of Andrew's Pokemon. I think he still has all 4 against Ben's 1 Zygarde. Although Ben's Zygarde, it isn't something to just...
It can't attack next turn.
Because
because the Incineroar is on the field right now, has that big up potential. The Zygarde it could protect, but that still means it's not attacking out. I think it is actually faster than both of Andrew's Pokemon, so if you protect on this turn, you are in an okay spot. But again, you're kind of still in trouble here, where Andrew's trying to set up to have both Groudon and Victory Bell on the field. Both Pokemon that will be faster, or at least, you know, that Victory Bell will be faster than that Zygarde.
Yeah, even if Andrew would sacrifice both of the Pokemon that he has on the field right now, there's nothing he can do to stop that Victory Bell Groudon combo. They're really something to watch out for. Victory Bell being so fast. Enough, and we saw I had Grass Knot with the Life Orb, and that's going to do a decent amount on the Zygarde. And then the Precipice Blades from Groudon, that combination is definitely enough to finish off Ben's Zygarde. I also really want to applaud Andrew for getting Ben's Zygarde to just above the Power Constrict levels.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough because, like, you don't want to activate that at all anyway. So the Nature's Madness is going to connect. This is actually the most time I've seen Nature's Madness connect on the stream today. It's going to be able to, get the double knockout onto both Pokemon here. Actually, I don't know about that. I don't know about that Tapu Koko actually, but I think we're going to see Groudon come back now.
I think Groudon's the right play as well. You obviously want to get that sun up for Victory Bell later. And Tapu Koko, still being fastest on the field, could get another Nature's Madness off if you're lucky. And that, I think that is the move that'll do the most damage to Zygarde, even though it won't knock it out. Giving it the support where Precipice Blades can possibly remove that Zygarde, I think Andrew's going to want to go for that for sure. And there is that Groudon that we were talking about.
Oh, you can get Nature's Madness again. As soon as you get Nature's Madness and you've got a single target Precipice Blades against a Groudon who hasn't been intimidated, there's not really much you can do. If this Tapu Koko goes down to 1,000 arrows, it doesn't really matter because then you get the Victory Bell for free, and you can just do damage onto that Zygarde with that core.
You know, Andrew's team on paper, he's got 2 things that are weak to ground and everything else neutral to it. Oh, Nature's Madness misses though, so...
Yeah, but the Precipice Blades connect, and even if you lose the Tapu Koko to that 1,000 arrows, which we're going to see happen, it's not going to really matter because you get that free that like Rebel again, and you've got either Grass Knot, you've got the Sludge Bomb, you've got that single target press displays. There's a lot of things that Andrew has on his side still that Ben can't really stop.
There's not very much. Yeah, I think Andrew, 90% chance he's going to take this game, especially when you look at the health on Victory Bell and Groudon. They're both into decent. Victory Bell, of course, doesn't really need that much health because it is fastest. Groudon's got enough bulk to take another 1,000 arrows. And like I said earlier, Andrew's team on paper, it does not look like it would be a Zygarde team, but he was able to switch in his Incineroars. We're going to see, Extreme Speed showing, so not enough though. But Andrew really pivoted his Pokemon perfectly, and that was really fun to say.
So I mean, that was actually fun game for me to watch. There was a lot of them figuring out how to kind of manage their Pokemon properly. So very good job to Andrew going into top 4. Ben, runs end tier, but at least he gets CP still. So it'll be fun. I think that was actually the last match of the top 8. So we'll be with you guys shortly for top 4, so don't go anywhere. I will see you guys actually in finals. Yeah. So we'll see you guys for top 4. Don't go anywhere. Okay.